Lost, alone, fading in the wilderness. No one knows where you are. But then, a shadow falls. A stranger, just passing through, sees you. No questions asked, no cameras rolling, just instant action. 24 hours later, the roaring blades cut through the silent forest, and the world finally understood. This wasn't just a rescue, it was a promise. If this gave you chills, comment "Brotherhood" to honor those who answer the call without question. City noise, the constant chatter, that never-fading mechanical hum, it all scraped at Jack Mason's nerves. A retired Navy SEAL, he found peace deep in the wilderness, far from any phone signal. Hiking solo was his solace. Silence was the only thing that didn't set off his hypervigilance, the only place the world made sense. He carried an old map, a compass, and decades of training that had become second nature. Technology might fail, but instinct didn't. On the third day of his latest hike through the vast Appalachian wilderness, Jack paused by a stream. Something was out of place, a military boot, old but unmistakable, half buried under fallen leaves. Then, an arm, a body. His own 66 years fell away as muscle memory took command. The man was barely conscious, skin pale and waxy, lips cracked and bleeding, whispering something in a delirium of dehydration. Jack leaned close. Bravo 47. Wrapped around the man's chest was a piece of an American flag, torn, dirty, weathered by time and the elements, but it was tucked with the precise fold of someone who understood what it represented, not just a random scrap of cloth, but a talisman. No ID, no gear, just a bruised body and fading breath. Jack didn't ask questions. He didn't film. He didn't post. He just acted. Years of training condensed into immediate response. He gave the man water, careful not to let him drink too quickly. He ripped apart his own pack to use as a pillow. He started treatment with what little he had: antiseptic wipes, a compression bandage, the small medical kit all SEALs carried long after their service ended. "You stay alive, brother," he said, the words half command, half prayer. "I've seen worse, and so have you." But they were deep in the forest, miles from any help. Night was falling with the merciless indifference of nature. No cell coverage, no trail markers nearby. Just wilderness, stretching in every direction. Jack assessed the man's condition with the clinical precision of someone who had treated wounds under fire. Dehydration, exposure, possible concussion. Nothing immediately fatal, but nothing that would heal without proper medical attention. As the sky darkened, Jack looked around, calculating distances and time. His decision was made. "I'm not leaving you," he stated, though unsure if the man could hear him. "That's not how this works." Jack built a fire, not for his own comfort. He could endure the night's chill, but to signal. 3 fires in a triangle pattern, the universal distress marker, the international language that screamed, "Someone here needs help." The man faded in and out of consciousness. Each time he spoke, it was the same whispered mantra: "Unit 47, Jackson," over and over, like a broken record. The words slipped between his cracked lips with each labored breath. Jack recognized that kind of talk. It was the voice of a soldier stuck between memory and pain. He had heard it before, in jungles and deserts, when injured men called out, not for mothers or wives, but for their units, their brothers, their true north, when everything else had fallen away. Throughout the night, Jack kept watch. He rationed his own water, giving most to the stranger. He tore strips from his shirt to dress wounds he discovered on the man's legs and back. He applied cold compresses from the stream to bring down fever. Every hour, like clockwork, he checked vital signs. A routine burned into his memory from decades of service. Between these ministrations, he carefully searched the man's pockets. He found a photograph, water-damaged but still legible. It showed 2 men in uniform, standing near a Humvee, arms locked around each other's shoulders. One was clearly a younger version of the man on the ground. The patch on their shoulders was clear enough. Bravo Company, 47th Infantry. Vietnam era, long before Jack's own time in uniform. The harsh indifference of the wilderness pressed in, but Jack's resolve remained unbroken. The next morning, Jack made the call. Literally, he climbed a nearby ridge, fighting through brambles and loose shale with the determination of a man half his age. He found it. A single bar of signal. One bar was enough. It had to be. He texted a code to a number he hadn't used in 12 years. No explanation, just coordinates and 2 words. Seal priority. Then he returned to the injured man, whose breathing had become more labored overnight. "Hang on, Jackson," he urged, using the name he had heard repeated. "Help's coming. They never forget one of their own. Neither do we." As the sun climbed higher, Jack dug a shallow trench to keep the man's legs elevated, improving circulation. He fended off a curious raccoon, drawn by the scent of humans. He even built a windbreak from branches and his own jacket to guard against the morning chill that seeped through the trees. His own body protested, knees aching from the cold ground, back stiff from a night without rest. But these discomforts registered as mere data points, not limitations, not when someone else's life hung in the balance. That afternoon, they heard it, a distant sound. Not birds, not wind through leaves, rotors. Jack stood, muscles groaning, and limped to a small clearing. He waved the tattered flag he'd kept beside him, the universal signal of both distress and identity. Within minutes, a Blackhawk helicopter broke through the treetops and descended with the controlled power of military precision. Downdraft whipping leaves into a frenzy around Jack's weathered face. Medics leapt out before the skids fully touched ground. One recognized Jack instantly. "Chief Mason, you called this in?" "Didn't have to," Jack said, leading them quickly to where Jackson lay. "Just gave a name." As medics loaded the man onto the stretcher, checking vitals and starting IVs with practiced efficiency, a senior officer knelt beside Jack. "You found Jackson? After all this time?" Jack just nodded, suddenly exhausted now that help had arrived. "Didn't know who he was," he admitted. "Just knew he was one of ours." The officer squeezed Jack's shoulder once, the silent language of those who served, understanding without words, gratitude without fanfare. As the helicopter lifted, carrying Jackson to safety, Jack remained behind, gathering what was left of his supplies. No one had offered him a ride. He hadn't asked for one. Some journeys had to be finished on foot, one step at a time, the way they began. Jackson, 72, was a decorated Vietnam veteran who'd been reported missing by his family 3 days earlier. A man who'd earned 2 Purple Hearts and a Bronze Star. He had wandered into the forest after a severe PTSD episode triggered by the anniversary of a mission gone wrong. His medications left behind, his phone unanswered. No one had been able to reach him. His family believed he'd died. His grandchildren had already begun writing eulogies, but Jack, a stranger, kept him alive long enough to come home. At the base hospital, once stabilized and coherent, Jackson finally spoke more than just his unit number. His voice was rough from dehydration, but his eyes were clear as they fixed on Jack, who'd refused to leave until he knew the man would survive. "Was it you?" Jackson asked simply. Jack smiled, the expression softening the hard angles of his face. "Someone had to sit with you. Part of the job description." The story made national news within 48 hours. In an age where heroism often came with hashtags and curated social media moments, this quiet rescue struck a chord. Headlines read, "Navy SEAL rescues lost Vietnam veteran, alone, without orders, without modern technology." But Jack refused interviews, declined appearances on morning shows. "It's not a story," he told one persistent reporter. "It's a promise. One soldier to another. That's all it needs to be." At a private ceremony, Jackson, bruised but alive, spoke. "I thought I was done. I thought the world had moved on and forgotten men like me. But a man I'd never met, a brother in boots I never served alongside, came back for me." No one in the room looked away. General Stanton handed Jack a plaque for answering a call never spoken. What mattered most to Jack was the small patch Jackson handed him days later, taken from his own shadow box. Bravo 47, never left behind. Jack stitched it into his backpack. The uniform fades, but the vow doesn't. If this story of loyalty, sacrifice, and unbreakable bonds touched your heart, type "Never Abandon" in the comments below. Want more powerful, true stories of courage, connection, and the quiet heroes among us? Subscribe to Quiet Soldier Stories. Don't miss the tales that prove some bonds transcend time, rank, and the noise of the world. Join our community and discover what it truly means to answer the call without question.